Everyone. So in this video, I want to talk about the connection between Islam and Marxism at the economic level. Okay, if that sounds a little off the wall, here's a clip of Bill Maher the other day on Real Time calling out Zoran Mamdani. Now, Bill Maher is not exactly an economist and he's not exactly a theologian, but what he says in this clip really got me thinking. That's what I want to talk about here. So here, have a look at this.
Now, let me tell you about the story that liberal algorithms locked out. Her name is Sia Weaver, and if you ask anyone in the blue sky bubble who that is, they'll look at you like a turkey looking up at the rain. But she's kind of important in New York, being Major Mamdani's chief of the Office to Protect Tenants, and since Mamdani's big issue is the rent's too damn high, yes, he stole this guy's act. It's a very key appointment in the most important city in the country, which is also our financial center. It matters that the mayor stands by, and I assume stands with, someone who says things like, if you don't believe in the government's sacred right to seize private property, it's over. Seize private property. Home ownership is racist. Elect more communists. Private property, especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy. Really? Even among the 20 million black Americans who own their own home? Democrats seem to be having this debate whether or not Mayor Mamdani is a socialist or a democratic socialist. Let me settle it. He's a straight-up communist. How do I know this? Well, I'm reading between the lines when one of his major advisors says, elect more communists.
All right. So what Bill Maher was talking about in terms of this Sia Weaver, this is Sia Weaver, this tenant advocate director. So she's the one who wants to abolish private property. She tweeted out a few years ago, private property, including any kind of especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy masquerading as wealth building public policy. And of course, there's this famous viral clip that during the campaign was all over the place of Zoran Mamdani talking about private property. Let's look at that.
My platform is that every single person should have housing. And I think faced with these two options, the system has hundreds of thousands of people unhoused, right? For what? And if there was any system that could guarantee each person housing, whether you call it the abolition of private property or you call it, just a statewide housing guarantee, it is preferable to what is going on right now.
The abolition of private property is preferable to what is going on right now. So look, in January, this past January, when he was inaugurated as mayor of New York, Mamdani was quoted as saying, as part of his address, that we would replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Okay, this guy believes in collectivism. So I want to zoom out now and talk about this whole issue of the state having the divine right, the sacred right to confiscate private property, which was actually Sia Weaver's statement, even though to my knowledge, she's not Muslim, so I don't know what she means by a sacred right. This is not really an economic debate. That's what I want to share with you. There's something ideological and even religious about this debate, because it's a debate about what a human being is. And it cuts right to the core of what our relationship to God is and where authority comes from. See, underneath every economic system is a deeper question, which is, where do our rights come from? Do they come from God? Do they come from human dignity? Do they come from the state? If you look at Marxism historically, okay, not just the theory of Marxism, I'm talking about the implementation of it. Countries that implemented Marxism, communist countries, one thing that is consistent is that Marxist and communist regimes have almost always restricted, suppressed, or outright persecuted and made illegal biblical faith, biblical religion, meaning Judaism and Christianity. Okay? Why? Because biblical religion is dangerous to their power structures. In the biblical worldview, human beings are created in the image of God. And that means that every person has inherent dignity. It means authority is limited. Even in Deuteronomy, when it talks about having a king, it says that the king is only appointed a king if the people say they want a king. And then the Bible goes on to talk about all sorts of restrictions that the king has on his power, and makes it very clear that he's subject to all the same laws as everyone else. And this was a huge thing, back in biblical times, that you have a king who's actually not all powerful. So the Bible was actually limiting authority. And most importantly, what you see in the Bible is that the individual's rights don't come from the king. They don't come from the state. They come from God. And that's a direct threat to any system that wants total authority. So totalitarian regimes have always tended to, especially collectivist totalitarian regimes, have always tended to persecute biblical religion. Okay? So like the communist regimes, like Soviet Union, China, they close churches, they arrest clergy, they harass clergy, they ban religious education, and they try to replace religion with their Marxist ideology, right? They saw faith in God as an ideological threat to the Marxist communist ideology. Now, if you look at Islamic political thought, not necessarily individual Muslims, but Islamic political theology, you see something very different. Collectivist thinking is not necessarily a threat, because Islam already begins from a premise of submission. That's what the word Islam means, meaning the whole posture of the human being vis-a-vis God in Islam is one of complete submission, not empowerment. Right? In biblical faith, God is empowering us. We're in his image. In Islamic faith, we are submitting to the total power of God, to the divine authority. And what that also translates into is that you're also submitting to the religious political authority. Now, to be clear, Islam has historically allowed private property and free enterprise. It had merchants. Islamic civilizations always had merchants and trade and people becoming wealthy and markets. But the philosophical viewpoint, the theological viewpoint of what personal property is very different in Islam from biblical thinking. So in the biblical worldview, property is tied to your own covenant with God. It's an inheritance that you get parent to child, and it's given to you directly from God. It's part of your identity. And you also use it in your own moral agency. You can use it or misuse it, but it's yours. Let me explain what I mean by that. The Bible mandates giving charity or tithing, right? And in the Bible, it's God telling you to give, and here's the key point, to give from what is yours. In Islamic law, there's also rules about giving, and similar to tithing and certain amounts of charity that have to be given. But wealth ultimately belongs to God, and humans are only temporary custodians. So the policies the mandate in Islam to give, it can actually be taken from you by force because it's not really yours to begin with. Okay, so when you combine that with socialist thinking, you get something that can feel very natural together, right? Socialism says property belongs to the collective or to the state, right? Islamic political thinking says property belongs to God and you are merely the custodian of it. Again, very similar to the view of property according to socialists, Marxists, people like C.A. Weaver and Zoran Mamdani, that really it's the state's, and the state allows you to use this property, but therefore the state can take it away from you at any time because it's not really yours. Okay, it's very similar to the Islamic framework. It's different language, it's different theological, it's different, different theology. Obviously, socialists don't believe in God, but structurally, as an idea, it's the same. The individual is not the actual owner of his land or his possessions. Okay, that's the point that matters. You see, once property is not really yours, once it's only yours because the state or the authorities, the powers that be allowed you to have it, then your freedom becomes conditional also. And that's what history teaches us. First, property is taken away because of fairness. And then it's, in order to bring about some sort of security situation. And there's political control involved in taking property. Once that line's crossed, it's very hard to go back. And that's why Marxist regimes traditionally, historically, have always seen biblical faith as a threat, right? Biblical religion says power is limited. Authority, even the highest authority, the king, is held accountable. Humans are individual, independent, autonomous moral agents. And their use of their own property is part of that moral agency. In a collectivist system, whether it's Marxism, like the secular collectivism, or it's what we'll call religious collectivism, the Islamic model, they see the individual differently. They see the individual as part of a larger structure, and that larger structure is what has priority, and that larger structure actually owns everything. And that's why we're seeing this blend of Marxism, socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, with Islam. See, once a society decides that ownership is really only in the hands of the state, then that society is already moving away from freedom. So this is where you see, again, another consistency between Islamic thinking and Marxist thinking. And what I'm trying to show in this video and some others that I've made on similar topics is that the bond between the red and the green in what we call the red-green alliance, the alliance between the Marxists, the socialists, the progressives, and the Islamists, is not only politically pragmatic. Okay, they actually agree on some fundamental ideological ideas that really underpin how they think about the world. Okay, so Zoran Mamdani is really the ultimate example of that blend of Marxism and Islam, which, again, for the reasons I just laid out, are actually quite comfortable with each other. Okay, I hope you found this video interesting. If so, please share it. Please tell other people about what we're doing on this channel. We're still growing it. I really appreciate all that help. And make sure to check out all the content at Israel 365's YouTube channel, which has changed name. The name was just changed to Israel 365 News. So please go check out that channel. And again, spread the word. God bless.